Alright, here's part 2 of my wonderful 101 review. So now, let's talk about the negatives, because I'll be completely honest, I do have a couple negatives toward this. My first negative I want to actually mention is I want to say this. My first negative I want to mention is just a minor negative. It's not a major one. My minor negative is the all-of-a-sudden spike in difficulty on a normal difficulty level. Though, I know normal difficulty is considered as hard difficulty. And I'll admit, it's very challenging, and I do like challenging games. In fact, this is actually one of the most challenging games I've played in years since Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Nintendo Wii. Actually. Yeah. I don't really mind the difficulty level too much in normal difficulty. My problem with it was that after I beat it a couple of operations, actually, only like maybe 3 of them, for some reason actually, there was all of a sudden a spike in difficulty level as soon as I got to Operation 4 or 5 or one of the two. And then it gets insanely hard from there, actually. And I know some people might think in my playthrough that I didn't have too much trouble, though, but it's like I said, there is mostly an all of a sudden spike in the game right after, as soon as you get to Operation 4 or 5. Even that, and because each operation is very, very long, it does get kind of annoying though. But to be fair though, I have said this before. The normal difficulty is hard, but it's not insanely hard because of its spike level. It gets like just normal difficulty for the first few operations, and all of a sudden the spike happens as soon as you get to level 4. It gets insanely hard right after that. And if you beat the whole game, you unlock the hard difficulty level. That makes it extremely more harder when you take more damage in that. And oh yeah, there is actually one positive thing I forgot to mention was the bosses. I actually thought the bosses were pretty neat, and really awesome. Although, but I just wanted to get out of the way, so I'm sorry if I forgot that. But back to the negatives. My second negative of the game. And this is just my opinion though, and I think some people might disagree with me on this. My second negative toward this I disliked is even though the game does give us a variety of different GEATHJERK enemies, he's in different types, and I give them major credit for that. My problem is that they pretty much recycle some of the same enemies, but added different abilities for each one. Actually, that requires a certain Unite morph to do. Like, for example, you get these giant big armor guys where basically they walk slow like this, and they go kick, and they go punch like that. And like the beginning one's a pretty simple one, but then you get the same ones, just different types of abilities and attributes. Like, for example, you get the same one, except he has spiky armor, and you need Unite Rip to remove it. And then you attack him on normal, like normal. And the same thing can be said about these Jaguar, or like machines actually, that are very super fast, and you can only use Unite Bomb to slow them down. That's fine, but they pretty much just reuse them two more times, except give them different attacks. Like, for example, one has like a fan, like attack that he can throw at, and one pretty much has like drills on his hands, and one has his claws. So that's my biggest complaint when it comes to the enemies. True, I give them major credit. They give us a wide variety of different types, but they mostly recycle the same ones, actually. But they mostly recycle the same exact enemies. Some of the same enemies, just give them different attributes, and you need a certain Unite morph to actually defeat them. And that's like I already said it's my only complaint, though, when it comes to the enemies. Besides that, I still like the enemies. You know, but there are a couple that I did find were pretty annoying, like the dragons and that. They were really freaking annoying enemies, in my opinion. Yeah. And my third negative. Now, this is my third and my only last negative, and this was a big problem for me throughout the majority of my playthrough in that. For some reason, there were times that the game would not let me pause to try to refill my health bar. And at first, the majority of the time it didn't work, and I thought, why isn't it letting me pause the game so I can do it? Until recently, right after I finished my playthrough, I actually found out that, to be honest, and by the way, I did finish recording the video my playthrough, by the way. It's just that it will be uploaded later this week, though, just to let you know. The problem is that I found out right after at the end of my playthrough, you're supposed to hold the pause button during the middle of a fight in order to activate it. If you just press start during the middle of a battle, regardless if you either attack or staying still, well, it's not going to appear. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Why didn't the game actually tell me? Why didn't the game actually tell me what to do? Why didn't the game tell me to hold the start button? Because that's simple. The game never told you that. You have to figure out yourself, and a lot of people are just used to just press the start button to pause the game. But the way how they did it awkwardly by making you hold down the pause start button, it's just beyond me. It's just beyond me at all. And in my opinion, quite honestly, this is actually my biggest problem, actually. Now, there is one other thing I want to mention, though, and this one I just have pretty much mixed feelings with, to be honest, though, is that, well, actually, I wouldn't say maybe mixed opinions. I'd say mostly it's a positive thing with a negative in it, though, whatever, but it's pretty much the same thing, is that there are times that the game does not really tell you what to do. And this was one of the biggest problems that most people gave average reviews and negative reviews mostly gave it, was that the game pretty much didn't explain too much of what you're supposed to do next, though. So instead of actually giving you at least a hint on the hint box on the left side of the screen, and actually, they pretty much rely on the environment to actually give you the hint. But I will give them credit, at least they do use the environments. The problem is, nobody's not going to be able to see. The problem is, a lot of people aren't going to be able to notice that. Like, for example, when I got to this part, where basically that I found this lava, and right behind me actually there was some platforms actually going down, and I had to figure out a way to get past it. It took me a couple of depths, or at least mostly one depth, to actually look at the environment, and I noticed that there was a giant bucket of water actually that has a crack on it, and since I can't walk through it, that probably means I have to use a Unite gun, and so I used it, and it actually works. But probably, in my opinion, probably the biggest one that probably showed that the game did not give me what hint, or even at least told me what to do, was that you get to this fire barrier, so with people that need help in rescuing, and by the way, I forgot to mention, the more heroes you rescue, the more citizens you rescue, the more members you add to your team, and the stronger your attacks become. And I forgot to mention that, so sorry about that. And what happened was that I got to this part, I stuck, and I ended the video there, and I said I wasn't going to start part until I figured it out. And apparently it took me at least 5 minutes to figure out that I was supposed to use Unite gun, and I thought, wait a minute. You got these giant tanks that say fire on them that's surrounded by fire, and at first I thought you need a Unite hand and throw the fireballs enough so they explode. But no, you're supposed to use Unite gun actually to shoot them. She's like, well, okay. Okay, maybe that could be, that actually explains it now. Oh, but would it help if you at least gave me a hint, or maybe better yet, actually, at least tell me what to do? Because quite honestly, it spent me a few minutes, and I looked at the thing, and even that, at the tanks, that too did not give me a hint at all what I was supposed to do. Though, I will be fair, though. I will be completely fair, though. There are times it does tell you what to do, though. There are times it tells you what to do, but other times, not really. They don't give you a hint or anything like that. Some don't really give you a hint at all, and you have to figure it out yourself, which I don't mind that for puzzle-wise. I don't mind that, though. And I bet some of the puzzles are interesting. We use the gamepad touchscreen, but outside of that, nah. Sometimes they explain it to you, sometimes it doesn't. Though, and quite honestly, though, that's pretty much mostly my negatives, actually. Is that sometimes the game explains what you're supposed to do and sometimes not. Sometimes the touchscreen also works when you're doing Unite Morph, but sometimes not. And some enemies, they recycle the same, a couple of them, or just give them a different attribute to do a different way to defeat them. Though that's pretty much all it says. So, would I actually give this game a rating out of 10? Well, in my opinion, actually, Sorry for that. In my opinion, actually, quite honestly, it definitely is one of the most challenging games I played this year. Actually, and probably the most challenging one I played in a long time since Donkey Kong Country Returns. And then I know Splinter Cell Blacklist was a hard game, but it wasn't really that much of a challenge to me, nor Rayman Legends. Rayman Legends was challenging, but this was more challenging than that game, I'll tell you that. So, like I said, the graphics are good. The way they told the story is actually pretty good and very interesting. The characters are really likable. The humor, I will say, sometimes it's a hit or miss. As though depending on how you find this type of humor either funny or not. Though I definitely did like a bit of the humor, but there were some I did find that I didn't laugh at were just a hit or miss. Though I do like the level designs. I like the designs on the enemies and even the human characters. And all the different types of wonders. And I forgot to mention two other things that's a major positive for me too. Number one, when you just beat the campaign mode on any difficult, well, depending on how fast you do this game, pretty much, if you want to get this over even fast, it can mostly take you 7 to 8 hours long. But if you decide to take your time to beat the main campaign, and I'm not going to kid you, it actually took me almost 11 hours to actually beat the main campaign of the game. Hey. Yeah, but like I said, that's just my opinion. Though, so, however, keep in mind, this game has a lot of replay value as well. You got collectible trophies, bottle caps, and secret characters to unlock to add to your team and permanently. It has a lot of replay value in this game. And keep in mind, it also has the mission modes, actually, in the game that can be supported up to 5 players, actually. And it's also a multiplayer game as well, actually. Because it supports up to 5 players, whoever gets the most points, actually, with the defeating amount of enemies or getting the most, all parts that are pretty much like screws and that stuff over there, whoever gets the most points pretty much wins the game, actually. Now, they are challenging, they are good by themselves if you play by yourself, but when it comes to a cooperative mode, it's mostly better to play it cooperatively. Actually, it's a lot better that way. And there's a grand total of actually 6, by the way. There's actually a total of 6, or actually no, wait a second. Actually, I think there's about up to 8 of them, and they range from easy difficulty to an insanely hard difficulty level. And in my opinion, that's a major positive that has so much replay value, and the fact that the game's pretty long, it's pretty long actually, and if you decide to beat 100%, this may take you more than 15 hours to try to beat 100% because there are some puzzles that are really hard to find out, and you have to try to solve yourself. But once you beat these puzzles, it's like, yes, I finally beat it, and I feel so accomplished. However, it's not really a masterpiece game or a perfect game. It really isn't. It's like I said, some enemies, a couple of the enemies in the game are just recycled with different attributes. Sometimes the game does explain things to you, but other times they don't explain to you or give you hints in the environment sometimes to explain it to you. And the other thing is, like I said, and I did feel that, actually, hold on a sec. And it's like I said, though, I did feel that the camera times sometimes would maybe go a bit too close, would maybe get a bit too close at random sometimes. So, but that's my opinion. I actually give Wonderful 101, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Though, I think it's a really great exclusive. Probably, at least, in my opinion, one of my favorite games this year. Actually, for the Wii U, actually, one of my favorites this year by far, with Pikmin 3, and even Rayman Legends. Now, if it didn't have some of the problems I mentioned in the game, that I just mentioned in it, this game would have easily gone over a 9/10. I actually wanted to give this game at least a 9/10 because I loved it a lot. Though, but because of some of the flaws it had that I had a problem with in that stuff, it pretty much prevents it from being a masterpiece or a perfect game. But like I said, I do give it an 8.5. It still is a really great game, and it definitely high recommendation for those who own a Wii U console. Excuse me. And if you're looking for a really good challenging game, And keep in mind though, remember when Nintendo promised during the Wii U's launch last year that they promised that they would release exclusive games in that to show off that the console is not just a kid's console, and that's more, and that they release games more for the hardcore audience. This game actually promises you that. This game, so like I said, although it does have a sudden spike in the difficulty level after a couple of operation missions, though it still is a very challenging game. It's definitely more recommendable, to be honest. It's more recommendable for the hardcore audience because that's the type of gaming audience this is targeted toward for, outside of people who are a fan of Japanese anime style graphics. So it's insanely challenging, lots of replay value, a long campaign that actually gets much better as the time progresses. Likable characters, there's fast-paced, intense gameplay that never gets boring by time. That in my opinion never gets boring, at all. Interesting variety of enemies and bosses. Those interesting ways to use the touchscreen and much more. So, and that's it for my review for Wonderful 101. Again, 8.5, a great game. Definitely a high recommendation for anybody who owns a Wii U. And I recommend anybody, and even for those who don't like these Japanese anime graphics, I still say go buy the game. It's insane, challenging. It's more targeted towards the hardcore audience because that's what it is. But keep in mind, it does have a difficulty select thing, actually. If you're like somebody who doesn't like hard difficulty level, just play it on very easy difficulty. And like I said, it's very good. It's just that what I recommend you do is when you play the game, I recommend get used to the controls first for a bit, so that way you can get used to it. And as for the pause thing, I recommend, like you said, just hold down the pause button, actually. Because like I said, there were a lot of times, for some reason, that even if you press the start button, actually for some reason, it mostly doesn't work unless you hold down the start button. But that's just my opinion, though. I could be wrong on that, but that's my opinion, though. And I also forgot to mention, it also has a wonderful merch store where you can buy different skills, abilities, and much more. Some abilities is useful, but other ones are not really that useful. But they can definitely come in handy for you in battle, depending on how you play the game's gameplay. So, that's it for my review. The game gets an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Fantastic game. A really good game for the hardcore audience. It's fast-paced, intense, never gets boring. A really good story that's told very well and gets better by time, and much more. So that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I explained very much to you why I like the game a lot, why I recommend it to Wii U owners, and even to the hardcore audience. It's a fantastic game. I recommend you buy it. Unfortunately, because it came out the same week, 2 days before Grand Theft Auto 5 last week, it pretty much is going to get destroyed in sales, but quite honestly though, its sales are going to go up by time anyway, so even if its first week it doesn't sell good, it will sell really good by time actually. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and who knows, maybe if I do decide to continue doing my game views, maybe I will, but it all depends. So this is just one exception actually I wanted to do. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.